Do that again and you're dead. A waitress threatens a crime kingpin, and what he does next freezes the room. You don't threaten a predator in its own territory. You don't lock eyes with a man who owns judges, cops, and cemeteries and dare him to blink. But that's exactly what she did. And in that single moment, a waitress with nothing left to lose rewrote the fate of an entire city. The room didn't explode when she spoke. It froze. In the low-lit heart of the city's most dangerous restaurant, music faltered mid-note. Forks hovered in midair. Conversations died unfinished. And standing over a corner booth meant for kings and killers, a tired waitress leaned in toward a man who had never been spoken to that way in his life. Her words were quiet. Calm. Final. Try that again, and I'll end you. What happened next didn't just shock the people in the room. It lit the fuse on a war that would leave streets scorched and loyalties buried. This is the story of Emily Carter. Rain didn't cleanse this city. It only made the filth shine. It was just after 7:30 p.m. on a midweek night, and the Blackwell Lounge was humming with the kind of tension money couldn't buy but power always brought with it. The place was too expensive for laughter, too exclusive for chaos. What filled the air instead was something heavier: unspoken threats, illegal deals sealed with eye contact, and the quiet confidence of people who believed consequences were for other men. Emily adjusted the strap of her apron, her fingers brushing the coarse fabric like it might anchor her. She was 26, but her eyes told a longer story, one filled with running, surviving, and never quite being safe. She needed this job. The pay was cash. No paperwork. No questions. And the kitchen staff understood one unbreakable rule: what you hear here, you forget. Booth 7 needs a refill, the floor supervisor muttered as he passed, breathless and slick with sweat. And smile. For God's sake, Rinaldi is here. The knock. Me landed hard. Marco Rinaldi. To the press, he was a logistics executive. To law enforcement, he was a ghost they could never catch. To the underworld, he was an architect of disappearance. People said his last rival vanished into an industrial recycling plant. No body. No case. No proof. Emily picked up the bottle, a vintage reserve that cost more than her yearly rent, and moved toward the shadowed booth in the corner. Rinaldi sat with his back against the wall, posture relaxed, eyes always moving. He looked younger than the rumors suggested, maybe early 30s, dressed in a slate-gray suit tailored with surgical precision. His gaze was sharp, dark, bored. To his right sat Victor, a massive enforcer built like a wall. To his left, Leon, thin, pale, and visibly nervous, the strategist. Emily approached quietly and began pouring. Marco didn't look at her. Instead, he flipped a heavy metal lighter open and shut. Click. Snap. Click. Snap. The numbers are short, Marco said calmly, his voice smooth enough to glide through the soft jazz playing overhead. I don't like short. Leon swallowed. Storms delayed the shipment. Marco smiled faintly. I don't control storms. But I do control what happens to people who blame them. Emily shifted to Marco's glass. That's when it happened. Marco slammed the lighter down, hard. The impact jolted the table. The wineglass in Emily's hand was struck, tipping violently. Deep red liquid burst across the pristine white cloth, splashing Marco's sleeve, but mostly soaking the front of Emily's uniform, cold and sticky against her skin. Silence. The band stopped playing. Every eye turned. Marco looked down at his cuff, then slowly lifted his gaze. He didn't apologize. He smiled. You're careless, he said lightly. Then, extending his arm toward her, fix it. It wasn't a request. It was a rewrite of reality. Victor chuckled under his breath. Something inside Emily cracked. Not fear, she knew fear. This was something else. Bone-deep exhaustion. The kind that comes from years of being invisible, disposable, and cornered by men who think power makes them untouchable. She grabbed a napkin. But she didn't kneel. Instead, she stepped closer. Too close. Her hip brushed the leather seat. She leaned in, inches from his face. She smelled like cheap soap and wine. He smelled like polished wood and gun oil. She took his wrist, firm, unshaking, and wiped the stain aggressively, never breaking eye contact. "You did that on purpose," she whispered. Marco's eyes widened, just barely. "Excuse me," he said, his voice dropping. Emily stopped wiping. She leaned in until her lips hovered near his ear. "I'm working double shifts on a bad knee," she murmured, voice smooth and lethal. "I don't have time for your games." Then, soft as a promise, "Do that again, and you're dead." She released his wrist, tossed the stained napkin onto the table, and straightened. "I'll bring a new bottle," she said evenly, already turning away. No one moved. Victor's hand hovered near his jacket. Leon looked ready to collapse. And Marco Rinaldi, who had never been challenged in his life, sat frozen, staring at the back of a waitress walking away like she'd just declared war. And for the first time in years, he smiled for real. His wrist throbbed where she grabbed him. "Boss," the big man muttered under his breath, flexing his fingers. "You want me to drag her out back?" Dominic didn't answer right away. He picked the lighter up again, rolling it slowly between his fingers. The soft metallic click echoed as he snapped it open, then shut. His eyes followed the woman as she disappeared through the swinging doors into the kitchen. For a moment, his expression was unreadable. Then something changed. A smile spread across his face, but not the sharp, dismissive smirk from before. This one was slower. Genuine. Curious. Almost amused. "No," Dominic said quietly. "Let her go." The big man hesitated. "You sure?" Dominic nodded. "And leave her a tip." Arthur, St. Ending nearby, froze. "How much?" Dominic didn't look away from the kitchen entrance. $5,000. Arthur coughed hard, choking on the air. $5,000? She threatened to Vanzetti, Dominic said calmly, bringing the lighter up again and flicking the flame alive. He lit a cigarette beneath a glaring "No smoking" sign and inhaled. "That hasn't happened in over a decade." Smoke curled slowly from his lips. "I want to know who she is," he continued. "Where she sleeps. Where she eats. Who she talks to. By morning, I want her entire life laid out in front of me." Behind the scenes, buried deep in the restaurant's walk-in freezer, the woman pressed her forehead against a shelf of frozen steel. The cold bit into her skin, grounding her as her heart slammed wildly against her ribs like a trapped animal. Her breath came fast, fogging the air. Stupid. Careless. She had broken the first rule, the only rule that ever mattered. Don't draw attention. Especially not from men like Dominic Vanzetti. She had spent nearly 4 years becoming invisible. A shadow. A name that blended into paperwork and receipts and payroll systems. The woman she used to be, the one who could field strip a handgun blindfolded, who knew how long a body could endure questioning before it broke, that woman was supposed to be gone. Officially, she didn't exist before 2022. She forced herself to breathe, slow and controlled, filling her lungs with the icy air. She couldn't stay. Not another night. She'd grab the emergency bag hidden beneath her loose floorboard and leave before dawn. Maybe head south. Maybe cross the border north. Anywhere but here. When she stepped back onto the restaurant floor, she kept her face neutral, movements calm. Panic was dangerous. Running too fast would only paint a target on her back. Table 7 was empty. On the wine-stained linen sat a thick stack of cash, neatly aligned, crisp $100 bills. 40 of them. And on top, pinned in place by a heavy crystal tumbler, was a business card. Charcoal black. Gold lettering. Venetti Group. Marcus Venetti. She flipped it over. Written in flowing fountain pen ink was a single sentence. You still owe me a drink. Her stomach dropped. It was bait. If she left it behind, it was an insult. If she took it, she was stepping into something she might not walk away from. After a moment's hesitation, she slid the cash into her apron. She'd use it for a ticket out. Morning broke weak and gray over the city. Marcus Vanetti stood in his penthouse office overlooking downtown, floor-to-ceiling glass framing a skyline that looked cold and distant. Steel. Marble. Silence. Everything about the room was built to intimidate. Silas entered, a thin manila folder tucked under his arm. His jaw was tight. "Well?" Marcus asked, turning from the window. "Who is she?" Silas dropped the folder onto the desk. "That's the problem." Marcus opened it. It was thin. Too thin. "She's nobody," Silas said. "Name's Lena Parker. Ohio birth record. Social number issued 4 years ago. No history before that. No family ties. No school photos. No credit trail." Marcus flipped the pages slowly. "She rents a studio in Bridgeport. Pays taxes. Works service jobs. That's it." Marcus leaned back, eyes narrowing. "A ghost," Silas muttered. "With one hell of a grip." "I watched the security footage," Silas continued. "When you tapped the glass, she didn't flinch. She tracked it. Assessed. Reacted. That wasn't a waitress reflex. That was training." Marcus steepled his fingers, thinking. So Lena Parker isn't real. He stood and walked back to the window. "I've got a meeting Friday," he said. "Eastern European Syndicate. They'll bring their own security. I need someone who can read a room without looking like muscle." Silas frowned. "You're not serious." "I don't want a waitress," Marcus said. "I want her." Silas shook his head. "She won't agree." Marcus smiled faintly. "She already took the money." A pause. "And if she refuses," Marcus added, dead casually, "remove her apartment from the map." Lena was halfway through packing when the knock came. Not polite. Not uncertain. The kind of knock that assumed obedience. Her eyes snapped to the rusted fire escape window. Still jammed shut. She swore under her breath. "Miss Parker," a deep voice called through the door. "Open up." Her hand went to the small bundle on the bed. She unwrapped it, revealing a compact revolver. She checked the chamber. Loaded. She slid it into the small of her back and pulled her sweater down. When she opened the door, Silas filled the frame. Trench coat. Neutral smile. Cold eyes. "Good morning," he said. "I quit," she replied flatly. "Tell him to keep his money." Silas stepped inside anyway, forcing her backward. His gaze swept the sparse apartment. "He's offering you a promotion." "Not interested." Silas's smile widened. "That's the thing about civilians. You think you get a choice." He reached for the duffel bag. "Don't," she warned. He laughed and dumped it onto the bed. Clothes spilled out. A passport slid across the floor. Silas picked it up. The name wasn't hers. His expression shifted. "Who the hell is Irina Volkov?" She moved. Fast. Her foot smashed into his knee with surgical precision. Bone cracked. As he buckled, she stepped in and drove her palm into his nose. Blood sprayed. He swung blindly, clipping her shoulder and sending her spinning. And the fight was on. The impact slammed him into the wall. Wood cracked. Glass exploded. A framed photograph shattered against the floor. Rafe staggered back, blinking hard, a string of blood spilling from the corner of his mouth. He shook his head like a stunned animal and reached instinctively for the holster at his hip. "Don't move." The voice cut through the room like a blade. Mara stood 10 feet away, both hands locked around a compact .38 revolver. The barrel was leveled perfectly between his eyes. Her arms didn't tremble. Her breathing was steady. Dead calm. Rafe froze. "Well," he muttered, wiping his nose with the back of his hand, staring down at the blood. "You really are full of surprises." "Get out," Mara hissed. The words were sharp, controlled, final. Rafe didn't move. He straightened slowly, as if testing how much space the gun would allow him. "I can't do that," he said evenly. "Because if I go back without you, Luca puts a bullet in my head. If you shoot me, Luca puts one in yours. And if you run?" He shrugged. "Luca always finds his problems." He tilted his head, studying her. "So whatever name you're using now, Mara, Nadia, something else entirely, you should lower the gun. You've got an appointment." Her finger tightened on the trigger. Her mind raced. If she fired, the shot would echo through the building. Neighbors. Sirens. Police. And police meant databases, fingerprints, records, ghosts from a life she had buried on purpose. A life that couldn't be dug up without killing her. She couldn't shoot him. Not here. Not yet. Slowly, deliberately, she lowered the revolver. "Fine," she said. "Take me to him." The ride was silent. Mara sat in the back of the black SUV, the doors locked from the inside. Child locks. A cruel little detail. She didn't look out the window to admire the city slipping past. She memorized turns. Bridges. Time between exits. They stopped in front of towering iron gates, thick as prison bars. Beyond them stood an estate that looked less like a home and more like a private stronghold, stone walls, motion lights, cameras tracking every inch of ground. Guards paced with leashed dogs, eyes sharp and bored. A fortress pretending to be a mansion. Inside, Luca Vanzaro waited in his library. He stood with his back to the door, swirling whiskey in a crystal glass, staring at a massive painting of a ship fighting a violent storm. Thunder frozen on canvas. Rafe shoved her forward. "She's got a temper," he said, touching his swollen face. "And she carries a .38. Also, her passport says her name's Nadia Volkov." "Eh?" Luca turned. His eyes flicked to Rafe's bruises. Then to Mara. And he smiled. "Nadia," he repeated slowly, tasting the word. "That's Russian, isn't it?" "It's just a name," Mara said, lifting her chin. "What do you want?" Luca stepped closer, studying her like a puzzle he enjoyed solving. "I want to know why a woman with combat instincts is pouring drinks for trash like me," he said calmly. "Who exactly are you running from?" "That's none of your concern." "It became my concern when you put a gun in my man's face," Luca replied softly. "I have enemies. The kind who like using pretty distractions." He stopped inches from her. "Are you an assassin?" "If I were," Mara said flatly, "you wouldn't be standing." Luca laughed, deep, genuine, delighted. "Fair enough." He returned to his desk and picked up a folder. "I have a proposal. You need protection. You have skills. And I need someone who isn't afraid of me. I'm not your bodyguard." "No," he gestured toward Rafe. "I already have those." He met her eyes. "I need a date." Mara blinked. "A what?" "Friday night. A meeting with a Russian syndicate." His voice hardened. "I need someone on my arm who can listen, watch exits, and tell me if I'm about to die." He leaned forward. "In return, I make whatever you're running from disappear. I have reach. Power. I can give you a real life, not the half-existence you're scraping by and over in Ridgepoint." Her chest tightened. "Which Russians?" she asked. "The Volkov family." The color drained from her face. Luca noticed instantly. "So," he murmured. "You know them." "I can't go there," she whispered. "They'll kill me." "They won't touch you," Luca growled, stepping closer. "Because you'll be with me." And from this moment on, you are under my protection. He paused. And if you help me survive that night, I'll deliver Anton Volkov to you myself. The devil's bargain. But the devil was the only thing strong enough to kill what hunted her. One night, she said. Luca smiled. Pooh. LL it off, he said, and you'll never run again. The guest wing was bigger than any place Mara had ever lived. It smelled like lemon polish and old money. Plush furniture. Heavy curtains. Luxury designed to suffocate. To her, it was still a cage. She paced the room, testing windows, reinforced glass. The door, solid oak, locked from the outside. At 2 o'clock sharp, the lock clicked. 3 women entered with rolling racks, makeup kits, and clipboards. Mr. Vanzaro says to choose something that says war, one of them said nervously. Mara scanned the gowns, lace, pastel silk, decorative nonsense. She pushed past them until her fingers brushed something cold and heavy at the back. Black silk. Floor length. High neck. Long sleeves. Backless. Severe. Dangerous. This one, she said. 2 hours later, Luca waited at the bottom of the grand staircase, checking his watch. He hated waiting. She's coming, Arthur muttered. She fired the makeup artist. She did what? Said she didn't want to look like a show dog. Then footsteps. Luca looked up and forgot how to breathe. Mara was gone. In her place stood something sharper. Darker. The black dress hugged her frame like armor disguised as silk. Her hair fell loose in controlled waves. Her makeup was minimal, sharp eyes, blood-red lips. She didn't look like a date. She looked like a warning. And Luca smiled. Her eyes were what stopped him. They weren't the weary, half-dead eyes of a woman who carried plates for tips. They were sharp. Cold. Calculating. The kind of eyes that measured a room and memorized exits without even trying. She descended the last few steps and came to a halt right in front of him. Elias noticed her shoes first. No heels. Instead, flat, expensive combat boots, discreet, well-worn, hidden beneath the elegant fall of her black dress. Practical, Elias murmured, glancing down. I can't run in stilettos, she replied without emotion. And if tonight goes bad, I fully plan on running. He stepped CL. Ozer. The scent hit him instantly, no longer cheap detergent and coffee grounds, but something layered and deliberate. Spicy. Floral. Controlled. Something he had chosen for her. His hand hovered near the small of her back, right where the dress dipped low. That's when he saw it. A scar. Jagged. White. Angry against her skin, tracing along her rib cage like a warning carved into flesh. His jaw tightened. Volkov. Her reaction was subtle, just a fraction of a second, but Elias caught it. A microscopic flinch. A breath held too long. She pulled away from his touch. We have an agreement, Moretti, she said firmly. You get your information. I get my freedom. We don't need to trade tragedy. It's not a tragedy if it tells me exactly how dangerous my enemy is, Elias replied quietly. He let the name fall between them like broken glass. Alexei Volkov. Heir to the Volkov syndicate. Unstable. Violent. And obsessed with knives. Her gaze flicked back to the scar on her side before returning to him. He doesn't just like control, she said. He needs it. He won't kill you quickly. He'll dismantle you first. Then, softer, more urgent. If he's at this meeting, he won't care about your money. He'll burn the place down just to get to me. Elias didn't blink. Let him try. He reached into his jacket and removed a small velvet box. When he opened it, the diamonds inside caught the light, a choker, brilliant and unmistakably heavy. Wear it. I'm not your accessory, she snapped. There's a tracker in the setting, he said, eyes hard. And a microphone. If we get separated, or someone drags you into a private room, I need to know where you are. He paused. Turn around. She hesitated, then did as he asked, sweeping her hair aside and exposing the vulnerable curve of her neck. His fingers brushed her skin as he fastened the clasp. Warm. Steady. Electric. For just a heartbeat, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Not fear. Safety. And that terrified her more than any gun ever had. Listen to me, Elias murmured near her ear, his breath hot against her skin. Tonight, you're not the waitress. You're not the ghost he buried. He tightened the clasp. You're mine. And no one steals from me. Do you understand? She shivered. Then she turned to face him, eyes locking with his. Just make sure your aim is good when this explodes, she said. Elias smiled and offered his arm. I don't miss. The venue was called the Iron Crown, a luxury nightclub buried in the industrial district, concrete and neon stacked like armor. It was a front, and everyone who mattered knew it. The moment the armored Bentley's door opened, the bass slammed into them, a deep, punishing rhythm that rattled bone and teeth. Elias stepped out first, adjusting his suit with practiced calm. He looked bored. Untouchable. He offered his hand. Hers was cold. But steady. Smile, he murmured as they passed the velvet ropes and the waiting crowd. You're having the best night of your life. I hate electronic music, she muttered through a flawless, dazzling grin. The bouncers, massive men with necks like steel cables, stepped aside instantly. No questions. No delays. They were escorted into a private elevator, bypassing the chaos below. The doors opened onto the VIP level. A different world. Dim lighting. Thick cigar smoke. The scent of aged liquor and money. At the center of the room, seated on deep red velvet sofas, were 6 men. Russians. In the middle sat the patriarch, Viktor Volkov. Ancient. Weathered. His face looked carved from dried leather, eyes sharp as flint. But she didn't look at him. Her attention snapped to the man at the bar. Tall. Blonde. Beautiful in a dangerous, cruel way. Dressed in white like he wanted to be seen. Alexei. Her heart stuttered. A real, physical hitch in her chest. Phantom pain flooded back, ribs, arm, soul. Run, her mind screamed. Kill him, her instincts answered. She tightened her grip on Elias's arm. He felt it. Covered her H. And with his own and squeezed. A promise. A warning. I've got you. Victor's voice boomed across the room. Elias Moretti. You've got courage coming here alone. I'm not alone, Elias replied smoothly. I brought my better half. He guided her forward. Alexei turned. The glass in his hand didn't shatter, but vodka spilled over the rim as his fingers trembled. His face drained of color, then flushed with violent disbelief. Natasha, he whispered. The name poisoned the air. The room fell silent. Guards shifted. Jackets rustled. You're mistaken, Elias said coolly, seating her beside him and draping an arm along the back of the sofa, protective. Possessive. Final. This is Elena. My fiancée. Fiancé? Alexei laughed, sharp and unhinged. That is not Elena. That is my wife. Ex-wife, she said, voice shaking, but loud. And I'm dead. Remember? You told everyone I died in a car crash. Alexei stopped a few feet away, eyes consuming her. I searched for you for 3 years, he snarled. Across Moscow. Across Chicago. Every shadow. Elias rose slowly. No rush. Just lethal grace. Careful, he said softly. You're speaking about the future, Mrs. Moretti. His gaze hardened. And I don't like your tone. She belongs to me. Alexei roared. Spittle flew from Mikhail's lips as he ranted, his voice cracking with entitlement. She belongs to the Korovin family. No, Lucien Hale said calmly, his tone slicing through the noise. She belongs to herself. And right now, she's with me. The room went still. Lucien turned his gaze to Sergei Korovin, the patriarch seated like a stone idol at the head of the lounge. So tell me, Sergei, are we here to talk about rerouting the Black Sea shipping lanes, or are we indulging your son's fantasies? Sergei studied the scene with cold, calculating eyes. The woman didn't interest him. Women never did. What mattered was leverage, contracts, margins. Still, he couldn't allow his son to be humiliated in front of his own men. The girl is an inconvenience, Sergei finally said, his voice low and gravelly. Hand her over to Alexei. We finalize the deal. You walk away with 8% of the narcotics corridor. We take the woman. 8%. That was tens of millions every single week. Lena Brooks felt the blood drain from her fingers. From her feet. From her face. They were bargaining her away like cargo. Like a vehicle. Like something with a price tag. Her eyes flicked to Lucien. This was it, the moment where reality won. No one chose a former waitress over an empire. No one walked away from that kind of money. Lucien looked down at her. He saw the fear she was trying to bury. The doubt she couldn't quite hide. He saw the exact second she prepared herself to be traded. Then he looked back at Sergei and smiled. No deal. The words landed like a gunshot. Sergei exhaled, disappointed. Almost regretful. Kill him. Alexei shrieked, scrambling to his feet. Kill him and take her. Everything detonated at once. 2 armed guards sprang up from behind the leather sofa, but Lena moved first. Before the man on the left could even raise his pistol, she spun, seized the half-empty vodka bottle from the low table, and smashed it straight into his face. Glass exploded. Alcohol sprayed. The man dropped screaming, hands clawing at his eyes. At the same instant, Lucien kicked the solid oak table with brutal force, flipping it onto its side. Down, he roared, shoving Lena behind it just as bullets ripped into the wood. Bang. 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 The ROM filled with thunder. Splinters flew. Lucien drew his custom .45 from its shoulder rig and fired twice over the table's edge. One guard crumpled instantly. We can't stay. Lena shouted, drawing the snub-nosed revolver she'd hidden in her boot. Lucien glanced at the gun. Then at her. Despite the chaos, he grinned. I knew you were trouble. The service lift, she yelled. Behind the bar. Cover me. Lucien rose, firing with surgical precision, forcing the men near the doors into cover. Lena leaned out from the opposite side, sighting Alexei's white suit behind the bar. She fired, the bullet shattered a mirror inches from his head. He ducked, screaming curses. Move! Lucien grabbed her hand, and they ran. Smoke burned their lungs. Drywall dust coated their tongues. A guard lunged from the shadows. Lucien didn't even slow down, smashing the man across the jaw with the pistol so hard he collapsed instantly. They reached the service elevator. Lucien slammed the button. Nothing. They killed the power, he growled. Stairs. Lena shouted. Fire exit, kitchen. They burst through swinging doors into a stunned kitchen full of frozen staff. Out of the way. Lucien thundered. They hit the rear exit. Lucien kicked the bar open, and they spilled into a rain-slick alley. Straight into a trap. A matte black van blocked the exit. 4 men stepped out, automatic rifles raised. Behind them, the Korovin men poured through the door. Nowhere to run. Lucien shoved Lena behind him, shielding her with his body. He checked his magazine, 3 rounds left. Too many enemies. Well, he panted, sweat streaking through ash on his face, this complicates things. Lena's eyes flicked upward. The fire escape was too high. Then she saw it. Fuel dripping from the van. The gas cap hung loose. Lucien, she whispered, do you still have that lighter? He followed her gaze. Saw the leak. Understood instantly. I do. Give it to me. He placed the silver lighter in her palm. On 3, she said. We. Dive behind the dumpster. 1, Lucien counted, raising his gun. 2, 3. Lucien fired, forcing the gunman to duck. Lena didn't throw the lighter. She threw the lit lighter. It spun through the rain, one tiny spark, and hit the gasoline. Humph! The explosion was instant. Violent. The van became a fireball. The shockwave threw men off their feet. Go! They ran, through smoke, over flaming debris, bursting onto the main road. Lucien's armored sedan waited, his driver Enzo pale with shock. In! Lucien yelled. They dove inside. Drive! The tires screamed as the car launched forward just as Alexei stumbled from the alley, suit blackened with soot, firing uselessly at disappearing taillights. Inside the car, silence crashed down. Heavy breathing. The smell of smoke and adrenaline. Lena slumped against the leather, chest heaving. Lucien looked wrecked, torn suit, ash-streaked face. Then he laughed. A chuckle. A bark. A full-throated roar. You blew up a van, he gasped. You actually blew up a van. Lena started laughing too, wild, hysterical, unstoppable. You flipped a table, she shot back. Very dramatic. The laughter faded. Something else replaced it, hot, electric, unavoidable. Lucien reached out, gripping the back of her neck, pulling her close. You didn't run, he said hoarsely. I told you, Lena whispered, lips inches from his. I only run in combat boots. Lucien didn't wait. He crushed his mouth to hers, hungry, desperate, fierce. Smoke. Rain. Survival. She kissed him back, fingers threading into his hair. For the first time, the chaos felt far away. For the first time in years, she didn't feel hunted. She felt dangerous. That realization was still blooming when the sharp buzz of Victor Hale's phone sliced through the air. He pulled away from her instantly, chest rising and falling, heat draining from his expression as if someone had flipped a switch. He glanced at the screen, then answered with a single word. Talk. He listened in silence. 1 second. Then 2. Whatever he heard erased every trace of warmth from his face, leaving behind something rigid and unreadable. I understand, Victor said at last. We're moving now. The call ended. He lowered the phone and looked at her. The look froze her blood. What? She asked, pushing herself upright. Victor, what happened? That was Elliot, he said. While we were at the club, someone breached my property. Her brow furrowed. Who did it? Doesn't matter, Victor replied flatly. What they took does. He paced once, then stopped. They didn't touch the cash. Didn't touch the art. They went straight for the server vault. Her stomach tightened. The drives? All of them, he said. Names. Ledgers. Judges, officers, city officials, every compromised asset I own. If Krulov has that, she started. He doesn't, Victor snapped, cutting her off. Krulov was in the club all night. This wasn't him. He turned toward the window, rain streaking the glass like smeared oil paint over the city lights. This was someone else, he said quietly. And whoever it is just picked a fight with both of us. The safe house turned out not to be a house at all. It was an abandoned underground signal relay, a relic from a forgotten military project, buried beneath a condemned shipping mill on the outskirts of Port Mason, just across the state line. No signs. No road markings. Just rust, weeds, and concrete pretending to be nothing. Inside, the air was stale and recycled, tinged with metal, dust, and ozone. Old fans hummed somewhere deep in the walls. Victor exploded. He kicked a steel chair across the operations room. It slammed into the concrete with a crack that echoed like a gunshot. How, he roared, spinning toward Marcus, who sat on a workbench wrapping a bleeding forearm. The vault uses retinal ID and vocal confirmation, Victor continued, pacing like a caged animal. My eye. My voice. She watched him unravel. The man who usually moved like a chess grandmaster, measured, precise. SE was gone. In his place was something feral. A predator furious that someone had found a way into his territory. Could have been a cyber breach, Marcus said through clenched teeth, dousing the wound with antiseptic. You don't breach a sealed system, Victor shouted. It's air-gapped. You need to be inside. You need a key. She lowered the damp cloth from her face. Or a copy, she said. Victor stopped. What? A synthetic pass, she continued calmly. Voice replication. High-definition retinal projection. It's possible. But even then, they'd still need the override codes. The codes change weekly, Victor said, his voice dropping into something lethal. Only 3 people have them. He looked at Marcus. Then he went still. And Elliot, she finished. Victor shook his head immediately. No. He's been with me since we were teenagers. He handles the books. He's family. He's also the one who called you, she said, stepping closer to the monitor bank. He set the timeline. Told you what was missing. Made sure suspicion pointed anywhere but him. Careful, Marcus growled, pushing himself to his feet. Elliot is blood. Family kills you first, she shot back. They know where you sleep. She turned to the screens. Marcus, pull the analog backups. Power grid data. Not the digital logs. Marcus hesitated, looking to Victor. Victor nodded once. Keys clacked. A graph flickered to life. There, she said, pointing. Power spike at 7:42 p.m. That wasn't weather. Someone cut power internally to bypass the alarms. Victor swallowed. We were en route at that time. And Elliot called you at 9, she said. Plenty of time to clear the vault and stage the break. Victor leaned his forehead against the concrete wall, eyes closing. The betrayal hit like a physical blow. Elliot, the man who poured his drinks, who handled the bodies, who knew where every secret was buried. If he had the drives, he wasn't just selling information. He was selling Victor's life. Why? Victor W.H.I. spurred. Does it matter? She asked gently. She placed a hand on his shoulder. He was vibrating with rage, but he didn't shake her off. We need to move, she said. Now. He knows everything, Victor said hoarsely. Every protocol. Every fallback. Even this place. As if summoned by the thought, the lights flickered. A red indicator flashed on the console. Perimeter alert. Victor drew his sidearm. He knows, he said. And he didn't come alone. Marcus grabbed a shotgun from the rack. How many? She checked the exterior cameras. 3 SUVs. Tactical gear. Not Krulov's people. Mercenaries, Victor said. Expensive ones. We can't hold this site, she said. Single exit. If they breach the blast doors, we're done. There's a ventilation shaft, Victor replied. Leads to the rail yards. I'm not crawling like a rat, Marcus muttered. You are if you want to breathe tomorrow, she said. She turned to Victor. Give me the ignition codes. You won't reach the car. I'm not driving it, she said, eyes glinting. I'm starting it remotely. Victor stiffened. There's a charge under the frame, she added. Isn't there? Standard contingency, he admitted. How did you know? You're a control freak, she said. Of course there's a bomb. She smiled with grim, focused. When they breach the door, I trigger it. Chaos buys us time. We move through the vent. Victor studied her for a long second. You're terrifying, he said. She met his gaze. I'm motivated. The reply came back tight and nervous. I just started this job, he said. I'd rather not get fired on my first week. Before anyone could respond, the sound hit, metal shrieking as a drill screamed against the reinforced doors outside the chamber. The noise echoed through the concrete bunker like a dentist's nightmare turned military grade. Vent. Now, Lena ordered. She yanked a sleek black key fob from her jacket. Her thumb hovered over the emergency button, hesitating for half a heartbeat. The drilling stopped. A dull, ominous thud followed. Charges. The explosion slammed into the blast door with bone-rattling force. Steel bowed inward. Smoke and dust poured through the seams. Through the swirling haze, thin red laser dots sliced the darkness, searching for bodies. Lena pressed the button. Above them, parked tight beside the mercenaries' armored SUVs, the fortified luxury sedan detonated. The blast ripped through the parking bay, flipping vehicles like toys. The ground convulsed. The bunker walls shuddered. Shouted commands outside collapsed into screams. Move! Marcus roared. He grabbed Evan and shoved him toward the floor grate. They ripped it open and dove into the narrow tunnel, crawling on hands and knees. The stench of burnt explosives mixed with sewage burned their throats. Behind them, gunfire erupted, bullets chewing into the empty room they just fled. They crawled until their lungs screamed. They burst out nearly half a kilometer away, into waist-high weeds at the edge of an abandoned rail yard. Rain had started again, cold and steady, washing soot from their faces as they gasped for air. Marcus turned back toward the rising smoke plume curling over the old garment factory. His expression hardened into something final. Caleb is dead, he said flatly. It wasn't a threat. It was an accounting. But first, Lena said, wringing water from her hair, we figure out where he's moving the drives. He's not keeping them. She swallowed. He's flipping them tonight. To who? Evan asked. Marcus met her eyes. To the one man who hates me enough to pay $1 billion for my head. Lena whispered the name. Nikolai Volkov. Marcus nodded. And I know exactly where the meat goes down. The city skyline looked like broken teeth biting into the night. 40 stories up, atop the unfinished Solstice Tower, floodlights bathed exposed steel in harsh white glare. No luxury yet, just concrete, girders, and open sky. Marcus, Lena, and Evan crouched behind a massive beam. Bruised. Burned. Running on nothing but adrenaline. He's by the edge, Marcus murmured. He's got the case. At the center of the rooftop, Caleb looked small. Terrified. He hugged a silver briefcase to his chest like a life preserver. 4 mercenaries surrounded him, but his eyes kept flicking upward. Rotor blades thundered from the north. A matte black helicopter descended hard onto the makeshift pad. The side door slid open. Nikolai Volkov stepped out. No white suit tonight. All black. Tactical gear. Assault rifle in hand. He advanced, stopping a few paces from Caleb as wind tore at their coats. The drives. Volkov shouted over the rotors. The money. Caleb screamed back, voice cracking. 40 million. Transfer it now. You get paid after verification, Volkov snapped, signaling his men to raise their weapons. That wasn't the deal. Caleb backed toward the ledge. I want confirmation first. Greed squared off against power. Now, Marcus whispered. He stepped into the light. Hands raised. Calm. Walking straight into the kill zone. Caleb. The rooftop froze. Caleb spun around, blood draining from his face like someone had pulled a plug. Marcus, he whispered. You're dead. The bunker. I'm difficult to bury, Marcus said smoothly. You wrote the policy, remember? Kill him. Caleb shrieked. No, Volkov barked. He's mine. His glare burned with pure hatred. Then Zaro, you're a disease. And you're the rash that keeps coming back, Marcus smiled. Funny how we always meet where I'm not invited. While every weapon tracked Marcus, no one noticed the shadow slipping along the perimeter. Lena moved silently through the lattice of steel. Volkov raised his rifle. Click. The sound stopped him cold. Lena stepped out, revolver pressed to the base of his skull. Drop it, Nikolai. His eyes widened. He knew that voice. Lower it, she said again. Or I repaint this roof. Slowly, Volkov complied. You won't shoot, he said. You swore. I filed the paperwork, Lena replied flat. Ly. This is closure. Kill her. Caleb screamed. Panicked, bleeding, he raised his pistol. Marcus fired. The shot cracked the air. Caleb's shoulder exploded in red spray. He collapsed, screaming, the briefcase skidding across the wet concrete. Chaos detonated. Evan opened fire from the flank, dropping 2 mercenaries. Marcus dove behind a concrete mixer as bullets sparked around him. Volkov spun, smashing Lena's gun aside. He backhanded her, sending her staggering. Then he grabbed her by the throat, lifting her off the ground. One step, he snarled, drawing a serrated knife, and she dies. Marcus froze. Lena couldn't breathe. Her vision tunneled. She locked eyes with Marcus and saw fear there. Then training kicked in. Close means opportunity. She went limp. Volkov relaxed, just a fraction. Her eyes snapped open. Both thumbs drove upward, burying deep into his eyes. Volkov screamed, dropping her as he clawed at his face, blinded. Lena hit the concrete and rolled. She saw the briefcase near the edge. Caleb was crawling for it. It's mine, he sobbed. No! Lena shouted. She tackled him. They slammed into the slick concrete, sliding uncontrollably toward the open drop, no railing, nothing but darkness below. Let go! Caleb kicked wildly. They slid over the edge. Lena! Marcus screamed. She caught a protruding rebar rod at the last instant. Caleb didn't release the case. The weight dragged them both. The chrome briefcase pulled like dead weight, a brutal anchor dragging him into the void. For a single frozen second, he looked back at her, eyes blown wide, finally understanding the cost of what he'd done. Then the darkness swallowed him whole. Marcus didn't hesitate. He dove forward, fingers locking around Elena's wrist with a grip so tight it hurt. Muscles screamed as he hauled her up, inch by inch, until her body scraped over the edge and slammed onto solid concrete. Rain soaked them both as they collapsed onto the rooftop, gasping. Marcus buried his face in her air, shaking uncontrollably. I thought I lost you, he whispered, his voice raw and shredded. The drives, Elena croaked, forcing herself to look back over the ledge. There. Gone, Marcus said quietly. Anton took them straight to hell. A low groan cut through the rain. At the center of the rooftop, Victor knelt on trembling knees. Blood streamed from his eyes, his sight burned away, his empire shattered. He wasn't screaming anymore. He was finished. Marcus stood, steadying Elena as she rose. He picked up a fallen handgun from the slick concrete and pressed it into her palm. Your life, he said evenly. Your choice. Elena walked toward the man who had hunted her for nearly 4 years. The man who had turned her nights into fear and her name into a liability. She looked down at the weapon, then at Victor, blind, broken, utterly defeated. Slowly, deliberately, she dropped the magazine. Then she tossed the gun aside. No, she said. Marcus watched her closely. If I kill him, he becomes a martyr, Elena continued, her voice calm but razor sharp. If I let him live, he becomes a mistake. And the wolves he ran with? She leaned down, her mouth close to Victor's ear. They'll tear him apart. She whispered the final command so only he could hear. Leave my city. Victor whimpered, a hollow sound, already forgotten by the world that once feared him. Elena turned away. She walked back to Marcus, rain streaking down her face, standing tall, no longer prey. The queen of this city didn't raise her voice. Let's go home, she said. 3 months later, the Black Velvet Lounge hummed with quiet anticipation. A slow jazz number floated through the air, smooth and sultry. The place had been reborn, new velvet booths, polished wood floors, crystal lighting that caught every shimmer of movement. Even the staff moved differently now. Carefully. Respectfully. Tonight mattered. The doors opened. The room fell silent. Marcus Valenti stepped inside. He looked lighter. Freer. The burden of secrets, the kind that rot a man from the inside, was gone. He'd rebuilt his empire the old way, loyalty, fear, and reputation. No leverage. No chains. But no one was really looking at him. They were staring at the woman on his arm. Elena Valenti. She wore a deep wine-red dress that clung like confidence. She didn't walk like a server anymore. She moved like she owned the floor beneath her heels, the walls around her, the oxygen in the room. People held their breath. They slid into the corner booth, table 7. The place where everything had begun. A young waiter approached, hands shaking, holding a bottle of vintage Bordeaux, an expensive one. Good evening, Mr. Valenti. Mrs. Valenti, he stammered. As he poured, his hand trembled. A single drop spilled. It landed on the pristine white tablecloth. The boy froze. Color drained from his face as he looked at Marcus, bracing for consequences. I'm so sorry, sir, he said quickly. I'll get a cloth. Marcus glanced at the stain. Then he looked at Elena. She reached out gently, taking the bottle from the boy's shaking hands. It's okay, she said warmly, smiling, a real smile. Accidents happen. Go grab a fresh napkin. No rush. The boy exhaled like he'd been pardoned by the governor. Thank you, ma'am, he said, practically sprinting away. Marcus leaned back, flipping open his silver lighter. Click. Snap. You've gone soft, he teased, eyes full of mischief. Elena leaned forward, mirroring the posture she'd taken the night they first met. Chin resting in her hand. I haven't gone soft, she said calmly. I've just learned the difference between an enemy and a nervous kid. Marcus reached across the table, taking her hand. His thumb traced the wedding band there. And what am I? He asked. Elena met his gaze. You're the man who handed me a gun when I needed it, she whispered. The one who stood between me and the abyss. She smiled, slow, knowing. You're the trouble I chose to keep. Marcus laughed, kissing her hand. The Volkovs are retreating, he said, turning serious. Their boss collapsed when he saw Victor. The syndicate's splitting apart. We didn't win, Elena corrected softly. We survived. Marcus nodded. And now, he said, pouring wine into her glass, we live. To the leap, he toasted. Elena clinked her glass against his. To the leap. She took a sip. This time, the wine tasted sweet. She looked out across the room, the city beyond the windows. She wasn't running. She wasn't hiding. The hunt was over. The lion had met the lioness, and together, they ruled the jungle. Elena set her glass down and met her husband's eyes with a sharp, dangerous smile. So, she said, what are we blowing up next? And that is how a waitress brought the most dangerous man in the city to his knees. Not with a weapon. but with a warning. Their story proves that sometimes the most powerful move you can make is refusing to be afraid. In a world full of monsters, Elena became the one thing they never saw coming. A warrior. They burned the past to build a future, proving that loyalty isn't bought with money, but earned by the person willing to jump off the roof with you. Wow, what a ride. If Elena's transformation had you hooked, hit that like button right now. Who was your favorite, Marcus or Elena? Let me know in the comments. I read every one. And if you want more intense stories packed with danger, romance, and twists you won't see coming, subscribe and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss the next one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.